let me jump to a story that, oh, this one made me sad. Okay. I'm going to show you this couple here. Let me go back to sharing. Let me go back to sharing this video, to sharing the screen. So we're all looking at the same thing. Here we go. Um, yes, come back. Boom. There we go. So this couple right here, their names are Michael and Catherine Burke. And they were in the news recently because they wanted to take in a foster child in Massachusetts. All right. And here's the thing, that's a wonderful thing. If you're a couple and you're like, we want to take in foster children who have nowhere else to go, they don't have a biological family to go back to, like, good for them. That's fantastic. But they're suing the state of Massachusetts because they said the state of Massachusetts rejected them as foster parents, even though they went through all the hoops you have to jump through to become a foster parent. They said, we went through the interviews, we went through the training, we had a social worker come to our house and assess our home life, and everything seemed fine. The problem happened when the social worker in question asked them, well, what would you do if the child we place in your care is gay or trans? Like, what's the deal? Do you support same sex marriage? And the couple's like, well, we're Catholic. We definitely don't support same sex marriage, but like, we're not going to kick the kid out of the house or anything. Okay, what about a trans kid? And they said basically the same thing, which is, no, we don't affirm a trans identity. We're not going to help them out with that sort of thing. And what the social worker wrote down was, their faith is not supportive and neither are they, which is accurate because the Catholic Church literally denies that trans people exist. They obviously oppose LGBTQ rights, same sex marriage. And here's the thing, if you're the state, you don't, and you're working with foster kids, you don't know which kids you are placing. You just need to make sure you're acting in the best interest of those children, whoever they are. And so if you're the state, you got to make sure that, oh, if we have a kid who is LGBTQ, we got to place them in a home that is going to be supportive of who they are and is non-discriminatory and is affirming, because these kids need positive support in their lives. And this family said, yeah, we're not going to do that. Now, again, here's the key question. Are they rejected from being foster parents because they are anti-trans and anti-same-sex marriage? Or is it because they are Catholic? Because their claim is that they were rejected because of their faith. And my claim, as someone who has no stake in this, is no, you were rejected because you're bigots, and the state has an obligation to not put kids in the home of bigots because they're looking out for the kids' best interests. Massachusetts has non-discrimination laws, so of course they got to follow the law as well. But anyway, this couple was not put on the list, and now they are suing. And I know it's a weird balancing act because children, especially in the foster care system, they need homes. And on paper, this couple seems perfectly qualified and fine. I don't know that for a fact, but on the surface, they sure seem like it, and they're eager to take kids in. This sounds like a win-win for everybody. However, again, the state's obligation is to protect the kids, even if that means not placing them in someone else's custody if there is a chance that couple could do harm, right? Like, that's the fear. Can you imagine what would happen if there was a child who came out as trans and they were placed in this particular home that was not affirming, and later on that child committed some sort of self-injury, self-harm? I would be pissed off that the state put a child like that in the home of people who are not affirming. And I think the state is right to look out for those kids and make sure that sort of thing does not happen. So I don't know what the state did wrong here. I don't think they did anything wrong. But if you go to the conservative legal group Beckett, if you go to their website, they have a whole case laid out about this. And they tell you, like, Mike is an Iraq war veteran. Kitty, Catherine, is a former paraprofessional for special needs children. They run a small business. And I'm reading that and I'm thinking, who cares? None of that matters. Nothing about this couple's biography matters. They're bigots. That's all that matters, because that's like a deal breaker for the state, right? But anyway, they're suing and they're suing for religious discrimination. According to the press release about the lawsuit here, so you could see this. This is from Beckett, the legal law firm, the conservative group. Massachusetts turned its policies into a ban on certain religious beliefs. This is as unconstitutional as it is unnecessary. Hundreds of children in the state's foster care system need homes, and religious parents like Mike and Kitty Burke are ready to open their hearts and homes. Massachusetts cannot exclude religious couples like the Burkes from fostering because they are religious, nor can they punish qualified families for their deeply held religious beliefs. It's like, that's not why. That's not why they were excluded. They were excluded because they're bigots. They're not rejected because they're Catholics. I'm sure there are plenty of Catholics who are like, yeah, of course we'll take in LGBTQ people. Why wouldn't we? We're nice people. And they don't care what the Vatican says about any of this stuff. That's not their thing. So, like, and by the way, that is actually really true. Let me get some numbers for you here. More than 2/3 of Catholics support marriage equality. More than a third of U.S. Catholics accept trans people. All of that violates the church's rules, but a bunch of Catholics don't care. They're like, yeah, I'm Catholic because my mom told me I'm Catholic, but like the Pope is wrong about everything. So, like, there's no problem with Catholics. The problem is if you're going to enforce your religious views that are bigoted onto kids who need support. So, I don't know. Beckett's argument, the legal group's argument, is that the Burkes have a case because Supreme Court is on their side, but the case they cited has nothing to do with the case at hand. And again, in Massachusetts, families can also be excluded from taking in foster children if they use physical abuse to keep kids in line. If you watch that documentary, Shiny Happy People, about the Duggars and like the conservative community that the Duggars were raised in, then you know that one of the things they do to keep kids in line is physical abuse. So if Massachusetts said, no, we don't allow people to hit kids if you're going to take in foster children, is that religious discrimination against conservative Christians? No, it's just looking out for the best interest of kids. I think the state can make that case here, um, that they're just looking out for the best interest of children, and that's all there is to it. By the way, there was an article in the Washington Post about all this. It's written by Kathleen Parker, who is a relatively conservative columnist. Let me show you the headline in her article here. This is about the Burkes. This is about their case. Check this out. A new Puritanism is turning Catholics into Salem's witches. Like, calm down. What the hell are you talking about? And if you go down here, after she describes the case, again, look at this. She's just describing their resume. These are good people, but the license review team determined that they would not be affirming to a child who is identified as LGBTQIA. This decision is absurd, and it is certainly not in the best interests of homeless children. And it's like, no, it's absolutely in the best interest of kids. What are you talking about? Other stuff she said, I want to quote here. Persecution found Catholics even in a country that has codified religious freedom. Oh, I got to show you this. Today, where did she write this? Today, Catholics, I'm going to find this and then I will show it to you. If I knew, there we go. Let me share this with you right here. Check this out. Today, Catholics seem to be the only group that can be diminished, ridiculed, and penalized for their faith without public outrage. The scourge of sexual abuse within the priesthood can probably be blamed for this, but the First Amendment shouldn't get the boot, along with disgraced church leaders. Like, what are you talking about? Catholics are the only victims of religious discrimination? Who knew? Not me, because that's not how it works. Like, I had to do the math on this. Like, what? Catholics are discriminated against? You know what would be interesting? What if one day we had a Catholic president? Maybe two of them in history, maybe one right now. What if you had a Catholic in Congress, or like 148 of them, which is the case? Like, Catholics are not being penalized here. The Burkes are, because they are bigots. If there's a lack of public outrage, it's because this case is not complicated, right? Like bigots don't get some religious right to call dibs on kids, and the state has a job to look out for the kids' best interests. By the way, Kathleen Parker is worth mentioning because she's been doing this for over 20 years. And I want to point out the worst article I think she's ever written. This will take a second to pull up here because right after 9/11, a couple of weeks after 9/11, this is what she wrote. I want to share this with you. Check this out. This is September 30th, 2001. Let's read this together, shall we? One can't help but notice the silence of atheists these days. Suddenly, God is everywhere. Blah, 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 blah. There are no atheists in foxholes, we've always known. There are atheists in foxholes. There are atheists in the military. There were none in the World Trade Center on September 11th. We can guess. How can you guess that? How do you know that? There's no way that's true. And now there are none anywhere to be found. America today is about God and country, but then it always has been. We just lost track. Like that was weeks after 9/11, which again has been called like the biggest faith-based initiative ever, right? To not blame religion for that, but to blame the lack of religion on like, oh well, God doesn't exist. Those people don't exist anywhere. Everyone believes in God now. We're all united as one, said this person after 9/11. And that does not match up with any of my recollections as a brown guy after 9/11. But that's Kathleen Parker for you. She gets paid to do this. She's been paid to do this for like over 20 years. Like, what the hell is happening there? So she didn't get the facts right 20 years ago. She doesn't have the facts right now, but she has no problem screaming persecution. Um, it's infuriating, isn't it?